When I returned to my late father's ranch, I didn't expect to find no trespassing signs nailed to my own fences, or a furious woman claiming my property was promised to her son. But when Karen called 911 demanding I vacate, the truth about the HOA's hidden deals started to unravel. The summer sun bled gold across the horizon when I turned off the cracked county road and onto the dirt path that led to my father's old ranch. It had been 3 years since I last saw this land. 3 long, aching years of city life, lawyers, and probate paperwork after his death. Now, I was finally home. The moment my truck's tires hit the gravel, memories came rushing back. The smell of rain on hay, the sound of wind sighing through the pines, and the faint creak of the porch swing where my father used to sip coffee at dawn. But the nostalgia curdled quickly when I saw the signs. Bright red letters screamed from my fence posts. No trespassing. HOA property. I slammed the brakes so hard the dust caught up to me. What the hell? I muttered, stepping out. Every 50 feet, another sign. Someone had even chained the front gate and welded a new padlock on it. My name, Ethan Cole, was still carved into the wooden post beside the gate. My father had carved it there when I turned 16, but it looked out of place beneath the shiny, officious metal plates. I cut the lock with my bolt cutters, feeling anger pulse through my veins. The moment the gate creaked open, I half expected someone to come running out and yell at me, and sure enough, I didn't have to wait long. A silver SUV came barreling down the hill, dust flying behind it like smoke. It screeched to a halt right behind my truck, and out stepped a woman who looked like she had memorized every HOA rulebook ever printed. Blonde bob, expensive sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and a voice sharp enough to cut wire. "Excuse me," she barked, marching toward me. "What do you think you're doing on this property?" I blinked. "This property is mine," she scoffed, glancing around. "Not anymore. This land is managed by the Meadowbrook Homeowners Association." "You're trespassing," I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Lady, I grew up here. My father owned this land before there was even a Meadowbrook anything." She straightened her shoulders. "Well, times change. The association expanded. This lot was annexed. We've had issues with squatters recently, so I had to put up those signs myself." "You put up the signs?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes. My name's Karen Wilcox, head of the HOA, and unless you can prove ownership, I'm calling the sheriff." Something about the way she said it made my blood boil. Her tone wasn't just authoritative, it was entitled. Like she genuinely believed I had no right to be there. I pulled the deed from my glove compartment, original, notarized with my father's signature. When I showed it to her, she didn't even glance at it before pulling out her phone. "I'll let the authorities sort this out," she said, dialing. "I don't deal with people who think they can just walk onto community property." By the time the sheriff arrived, the sun was high and my patience had worn thin. I sat on the porch steps, sipping from a thermos of coffee, watching Karen pace like a guard dog by her SUV. She was on her phone again, probably updating her fellow HOA enforcers on the situation. 2 sheriff vehicles rolled up the drive, dust curling around their wheels. Sheriff Dalton stepped out, an old friend of my father's, though the years had carved his face into someone more cautious and political. "Ethan Cole," he said, tipping his hat. "Heard you were back. But, he glanced at Karen. "Got a report of trespassing." "Yeah," I said, standing. "On my own land," Karen interrupted before I could continue. "Sheriff, this man broke the lock on community property, ignored posted signs, and is refusing to leave. He's aggressive and confrontational." "Ma'am," Dalton said slowly, "you said this is HOA land?" "Yes," she said sharply. "Lot 47B of Meadowbrook Estates. My son Nathan has been promised this property for development." I nearly choked. "Promised by who?" "The board," she replied, chin high. "We've been negotiating a purchase agreement for months. The association plans to build a community center here." I stepped forward, holding up the deed. "You can't negotiate what you don't own. This deed's been in my family since 1978. Dalton took it, squinting at the paper. "That's a valid deed, Karen. It's recorded in the county archives. Meadowbrook doesn't extend this far. The boundary stops half a mile east." Karen's eyes flashed with something dark. "That's impossible." "We pay taxes that include this section." "No, ma'am," Dalton said patiently. "You've been misinformed." Karen's face turned crimson. "Well, I'm not moving my signs until this is officially resolved." You people don't understand what kind of chaos happens when outsiders think they can take advantage of community land. I let out a short laugh. Outsiders? My dad built half the barns around this valley. Karen ignored me, snapping her phone up again. Fine, I'll escalate this. The HOA board will be hearing about your conduct, Sheriff. As she stomped off toward her car, Dalton leaned in and murmured, You might want to check your perimeter tonight. Folks like her don't take losing easy. He wasn't wrong. That evening, I heard tires crunching along the dirt road. 3 SUVs parked by the fence line, headlights glaring into the night. Figures moved near my gate, flashlights flicking, metal clinking. When I stepped onto the porch with my father's old Winchester slung over my shoulder, the lights froze. Who's out there? I shouted, a voice answered, dripping with entitlement. It's Nathan Wilcox. My mother said you're squatting here illegally. Then your mother's wrong, I said. Now get off my property before the sheriff gets another call, and this time from me. He hesitated, muttered something about unfinished business. Then they left. But not before I noticed they'd spray-painted something on my fence. The next morning I read the words in the daylight. Move out. Ho owns this. That's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a war. Over the next few days, I installed motion cameras around the property. I wasn't taking chances. Sure enough, on the 3rd night, I caught footage of 2 men in Meadowbrook security uniforms trying to plant new HOA boundary markers behind my barn. The footage was grainy but clear enough. One of them was Karen's son. I took it straight to the county assessor's office the next morning. The clerk, a tired woman with half-moon glasses, watched the video twice before shaking her head. This isn't the first complaint we've had about Meadowbrook, she said. They've been slowly redrawing lines, claiming parcels that were never annexed. Looks like someone's gotten greedy. Can we do something about it? I asked. Oh, absolutely, she replied, printing a stack of forms. We'll open an investigation today. By sunset, a county inspector showed up with official vehicles. Karen must have seen them because she stormed over within minutes, red-faced and livid. This is harassment, she screeched. You can't just drag the county into private community matters. It's not private if it's illegal, I said calmly. Your son trespassed and vandalized my property. I have the proof. The inspector, clipboard in hand, gestured to the fence line. Mrs. Wilcox, these boundary markers you placed extend 200 yards into non-HOA territory. That's a serious violation. Karen's composure finally cracked. This is outrageous. My son was promised this land. By who? The inspector asked. She hesitated, just long enough to betray guilt. By the developer who founded Meadowbrook. We had an understanding. Turned out, that understanding was a backdoor deal with a defunct real estate company that had gone bankrupt years ago. Karen had been using fake expansion maps to justify her authority, hoping no one would challenge her. But the county records exposed everything. Within 2 weeks, the Meadowbrook HOA board voted her out. The sheriff pressed charges for trespassing, property damage, and attempted fraud. And Nathan? He skipped town before the court date. When the dust settled, I walked the fence line one last time. The no trespassing signs were gone. My father's old sign, carved with my name, stood proud again. Dalton drove by that evening and parked by the gate. Heard the county's giving you a commendation for helping expose the HOA scam, he said with a grin. I shrugged. Didn't do it for the award. Just wanted my home back. As the sun dipped below the hills, the ranch looked the way it used to, quiet, sturdy, and mine. I leaned against the post, breathing in the familiar scent of sage and pine. For the first time in years, I felt peace settle in. But just before he drove off, Dalton rolled down his window. You know, Ethan, Karen's kind doesn't vanish easy. Keep your cameras up. I smiled faintly. Don't worry, Sheriff. This time, I'm ready. Because when an HOA Karen calls 911 demanding you move out of your own ranch, you learn quickly. Never let anyone rewrite your boundaries again.